But yeah, for now, season 8 premiere of Rick and Morty, right? We covered the seventh season back in 2023, I believe it was. Year's end, we talked about it. We really enjoyed it, But at the same time, it was like, all right, well, this is season 7, right? And given what went down with with the creator and all that kind of with Justin Roiland and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, how long does this show have again before, it sort of weighs on us, right? And it's not to say that the last season wore on me, right? Like I really enjoyed it, right? All the weirdness and all the crazy shenanigans and whatnot, right? But it's season 7, right? You know what I mean? It's like, all right, like we should kind of sort of organize things, like sort of wrap things up around now before we end up getting like the equivalent of something like a Fox animated series, right? Like a Bob's Burgers or a Family Guy where it's just ongoing, you know what I mean? But in the case of those shows, they have no excuse because they have The Simpsons as a template. This one here is Adult Swim, so it's like, well, all they need to wrap it up. Like, we don't need this to be the new Simpsons. Like, I mean, come on, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Or Futurama even worse.
Oh yeah. I still even watched that new season that dropped.
I started it and I just couldn't finish it. It was just like, wow, well, they're really like half-assed in this too.
Oh, serious? Okay, wow.
Yeah, I just couldn't get into it. Like, just like I don't know why. I get why they made it because they wanted to just try to do current jokes, but like it was just really flat and stale and not working at all.
Okay, that sucks. So I mean, it's Futurama, man.
Yeah.
I
watch you. I can't judge it properly. I didn't watch the whole thing, but like the little I watched, I was like, I get what they're trying to go for, but like, nah, this ain't working.
Yeah.
Not at least not for. Yeah.
Right, but back to Rick and Morty, right? So yes, season 8 premiere dropped last night. I was recording this year. Ricardo, take it away. Right. What happened? Wagwan.
Sure. Yeah. So just a quick little commentary on Rick and Morty. I do think the show it's a little too long in the tooth, and it's one of those shows because because it's so meta, and I consider Dan Harmon one of the best utilizers of meta out there. It because it's so meta, it now have to like just kind of run into the ground about whether or not it wants to address itself or not. And it has like I still think some of the best episodes is meta episodes about storytelling, for example. But the problem with the show is that it's want to have its cake and eat it too, and then want to wink at you to say, well, I could do that. So the fan base has always been like back and forth about whether or not it should enjoy its conceits or for real as in a real storyline or not, and how to take that seriously. And the writers of Rick and Morty has always like wax and wane about that of whether or not you should take them seriously, right? They've always played with that, like so they'll do something and then make fun of the thing or not, and the fourth wall stuff at a certain point. Our fourth wall stuff just started just get tired, right? At a certain point, and we could get into a big overarching, quote unquote meta narrative about why is that is the case, right? Why is that people again fed up of cynicism and irony over sincerity, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this show just kind of lands back into its fray, which is just a pretty standard sci-fi episode. If I remember correctly, this was supposed to be episode 5, I think, in the season, but they shuffled it to make it once. It's just a normal one-off episode, and it plays on a very petty premise. So don't want to really spoil anything as it is because that's the whole thing. But basically, Morty and Summer. All right, so the name of the episode is called "Summer of All Fears," right? So funny reference to "Summer of All Fears."
Yeah, that's clever. That's clever. Yeah.
Right. So, but what it plays with is that, all right, I suppose I think the beginning premise to work with it anyway. Rick is being incredibly petty. So what Rick did is someone and Morty did something that annoyed him, and then he literally made a matrix, right, and plugged them into it. So the entire matrix is to teach them a lesson about not doing that thing. Right, it's a very petty thing, but like because so many jokes and references borrow from that thing, I don't want to mention what it is. And then Morty and Summer escape from the Matrix, but then they do something with that, right? Involving how much time they spent in the Matrix. They're saying the Matrix, but it's really basically like another version of the Roy game, right? If you know the Roy game that is playing in the Alien arcade, it's the same thing, something like that. But the two of them shared it, and they run with it in a more interesting conceit. But the ramifications of that is the foundation of the episode. It's pretty standard stuff. They don't do anything interesting or special, or I don't know if that any background winking and a nod or anything like that. Right? They make reference to, if you know what Tread is. If you know what Tread is, it's a documentary that came out 3 or 4 years ago. If you know what that is, it makes reference to that. They make reference to It is Live Die Repeat, the Tom Cruise film.
Edge of
Um,
Tomorrow. Okay.
I just tomorrow Live Die Repeat. Right. That's it. And they do a lot of like funny character stuff involving the Matrix and the ramifications in Matrix, and I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, but as I said, Rick and Morty is kind of long in the tooth. I have no idea how many seasons will go on. Again, I'm in the camp that don't really notice or miss Justin Roiland, because I didn't even think of, oh shit, the voice song is different or anything like that. Both of them sound fine. I know it's two voice actors. One guy specializes in Morty, one guy specializes
Rick.
in Rick.
Yeah.
And they're working on bouncing off each other reasonably well. Fast enough. Again, one of the big factors as to why Rick and Morty work so well is because Justin Roiland was both voices, and he could have bounced back and forth with relative speed, and
Yes.
the humor, the dynamics of the scene fit that level of speed and interaction.
Especially when they are like cursing each other out, like you really pick up when they're quarreling with each other. It works very well. Yeah,
it worked right, exactly. And with this, the pace is not there as much. You don't see Rick and Morty bouncing off each other, at least not as fast as it could be. It clearly is now two actors. You could tell, at least I could tell. I get that feeling of it, playing with it as it is. So I mean, that's about it. It's money behind the scenes stuff that make the franchise win, I should say, for lack of a better term, at this point. But I dug it. Really funny first episode. Is a strong premiere as it is, and I want to see more. I mean, look, I can't say I'm a fan of the show, but the show I want to say the show has lost its relevance, for lack of a better term, right? That's how I kind of felt about it at a certain point. Like I like it, but Futurama did it better, and the question is what you're going to do with it, as it were, from this point on, in terms of like where we are in history, or how we think about politics, or how we think about like media and so on and so forth. And you can get into a big larger conversation about adult animation in general and why it is. I've always said that BoJack Horseman ended adult animation. You can't get better than that. Right? We had a couple of okay big shows after it, but to me, BoJack Horseman is the Avengers Endgame of adult animation in terms of like what its purpose is or how it works in terms of, well, to me, the American pop culture psyche and how people feel about it, right? Is Gen Xers started it, and once Gen Xers kind of out of the fray now, in terms of like what is relevant in terms of pop culture, I realize adult animation nowhere near as strong as it could be, right? Again, we could get into a whole long argument about that, and so on and so forth. We have Smiley Friends, which okay. I mean, I know a lot of people like it, but like it never really do anything for me. But again, I think I just too old for it at this point, and that's me speaking, and I'm in the middle of this because I was born right before The Simpsons. Yeah, whatever. Rambling on, right? Old man rambling. But solid premiere. I had fun with this, and I dug it for what it was. I know, if I were to rate an episode off as in terms of fun, 7 out of 10. It was fun. Had a couple of good jokes. There's a really funny joke involving Santa Fe. I thought that was funny. And what they pay off that really well in the post credit scene. That's involving Beth. It's funny. But that's it. 7, 6 out of 10. That's fine.
All right, nice. So weird segue time, right? So if you weren't watching Rick and Morty, or if you wasn't watching one of the like 2 wrestling pay-per-views that came out last night, you were probably watching the finale of season 2 of The Last of Us, right? We spoke about the first episode, believe it or not, in our premiere of It's a Wrap, right? But just for the sake of time, I will just do like a brief summary of what the season was about, and we will get into spoilers, right? But it'll just be thoughts overall on the show, and we'll just mention some moments here or there, right? And then we'll end things off with ratings, right? So season 2 pretty much starts basically 4 years after the end of the last season, right? So we're in Jackson, Wyoming. We are reintroduced to Joel and Ellie, the father-daughter combination. Basically Joel being the father figure of Ellie, right? Considering the fact that he saved her life, from this group of fireflies that was basically going to kill her, in quotes, with the intention of, using her brain as a way to, get, create a cure for this virus, right?
I just want to get this out of the way. According to the creator of the show, yes, the fireflies would have come up with a cure.
Yes.
This one argument I have almost no patience with, which is applying realism to the story about this. It's like, no, that'll undermine Jules' narrative if you make it where the fireflies was always incompetent or something like that. Like, the whole point is that, I mean, the only reason people try to do that is to get Joe off the hook about what he do. Like, I hate it. No. The fireflies had a cure.
Yeah.
Druckmann himself said so. moving on. Like, to me, that undermines the whole point of Joe's decision.
Right,
But
right.
people, it's that people who's getting this dumb argument about, oh, well, you could have do a biopsy, or they could have do this, and no, they're actually really incompetent, and they would have never cure it, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, arguing about biology in a world about with or without biology. And this is coming from me,
Yeah,
who have
yeah.
always, who have always like said, no, you should do this, that, and the other. No. The story and the conceit matters. If you're saying that the guy who talking about the magic mushroom zombies ignorant of biology, then fine. Moving on. Like, whatever. This is such a weird argument that people defending it. Anyway, moving on. Here I go.
Yeah, moving on, right? So when we are reintroduced to them, their relationship is strained, right? So yeah, Ellie is pretty much doing patrol stuff with her friends and whatnot, and she spent little time with Joel, right? And Joel is just
Right.
feeling
Yeah,
all down in the dumps about it.
Yeah, she was kind of avoiding him, yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's this psychiatrist that he goes to. Well, when in the premiere, I should say, yeah, that he talks to about what's going on with Ellie, right? So yeah, cut to basically New Year's Day, right? Because yeah, at the end of the first episode, there was the now famous Old Year's Night party that takes place at this church, and what happens there? Yeah, Ellie and her friend Dina, who spent pretty much the day, the afternoon before on patrol, and they ended up in a little adventure with a couple of zombies here or there. Yeah, they kiss, right? And things happen and whatnot, right? But yeah, cut to the next day now, and there's this attack by by a whole squad of infected, like a whole bunch of infected, right? At the same time, Joel runs afoul of this group of technically ex-Fireflies now, because they're now part of this group called the WLF, right? And the logo is a wolf, right? So you technically call them wolves, right?
The wolves,
yeah, one of them, or I should say the leader of this small group is a woman by the name of Abby, and she has a particular reason why she's after Joel, right? And they set this up in the first episode, right? And we will get to spoilers later on in terms of what happened. No matter of fact, we'll get to it right now because I already made the warning, right? But yeah, episode 2 pretty much ends with Joel getting killed. And I'll talk about that, right? Yes, where he's brutally beaten to death, right? Which surprised me when I found this out, right? A slightly tamer version of what happened to him in the game. Like in the game, it was way more brutal.
Yeah, I'm surprised they did it like this instead of they make it nicer. It's like, oh, they didn't kill Joel the brutal way, because in the game it was much more vicious.
Yes. And I'll talk about how violence is shown in this particular season, right? Especially when it comes to the major characters in this, right? So yeah, Ellie is feeling the side effects of it, very emotional and whatnot. She forms an even stronger bond with Dina, and because Dina is kind of, it's implied that she's bi-curious, but Ellie is queer, right? But it's they kind of hook up because they kind of have the hots for each other, right? Which is interesting now because Dina actually is pregnant for one of the members of basically the patrol of Jackson, right? This guy by the name of Jesse, right? And Ellie being Ellie now is like, look, we need to go and find Abby and these people and seek revenge. And there's this meeting that takes place. There's a voting process that takes place, and the majority of votes is like, no, we're not gonna go. So Ellie goes, but Dina tags along as well, and then Ellie basically knows, all right, this group is in Seattle, so I need to go to Seattle, right? So she gets there, Dina's there, and shenanigans ensue, and I'll stop there, right?
Yeah, we go. I forget where they are right now. Where they are, boy? What state they in at this point in this place?
They're still in Seattle. Where it ends, they're still in Seattle. They haven't left as yet. That's all I'll say.
But all right, so they come. No, I think they came to them, right? To find you, right? So they're still going back in the original people, because they were still in Seattle at that point in the storyline.
Yeah.
I forget where they went. Okay, it's slipping my mind. I haven't played the game in a while, and then the show didn't change. They changed a couple things, but they didn't change too much. So I just watched it and I'm like, all right, well, I'm too thinking it because they changed nothing.
All right.
They did anything I expected them to do, but I thought might have made it interesting, even though this would have been too much of a back and forth. I thought it would have been episode 1 Ellie, episode 2 Abby, episode 3 Ellie, episode 2, so to kind of play with the back and forth. But they didn't do that. They just focus entirely on Ellie and play with our narrative like how the game did it.
Right.
And then you play with Abby, because the finale, does it. And they kind of mentioned this already. They say, season 3 going to be all Abby. because the story they're going to tell the exact same story and what going on as Abby from her perspective, which is what it did in the game.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
So
I'll use that as a springboard to jump into my thoughts, right? I will pause so you could come in and see what you have to say, right? So I am speaking as someone who never played the games, right? Again, as I said before, it's not that I don't want to play them because I know both games are regarded as one of the greatest ever made. It's just I don't have the console. I just don't have a PlayStation 4 or 5 to play them damn things, right? So I'm sorry, right?
However,
Yeah, but I am speaking as somebody who never played the games, right? I thought.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the game is so cinematic that you really don't need to like play the games because nothing the game is do in terms of like the actual gameplay of the game.
Right.
Your pacing of it.
Okay.
And I suppose a couple speed runs and maybe like a couple upgrades, but nothing in the game is done in such a way where you need to like play it. It is a game that I always felt it felt like a movie anyway. Both first and second games, it's just a movie, right? It's just like, oh, so you can literally just go on YouTube and watch somebody play out the games, and it's like you're like you play the game already. It'll feel any different. Again, the gameplay have very little to do with your feeling about the game, in my humble opinion. Because it's so cinematic, and that's why I always thought Last of Us being converted to live action felt like cheating a little bit in terms of having a game be adaptation as a video game adaptation, because it was already like a thing anyway, and because it already do the zombie thing, which in this it really felt like some of the weaker moments of Walking Dead. To me,
Oh, I understand.
this season in particular. Yeah, that's how it is. But as I say, Yen, you can literally go on YouTube, and in my humble opinion, watch it out, and it's like you play the game.
Right,
Like,
right.
I really don't think you're missing anything. But it is a great game, and the gameplay is solid. Third-person shooter stuff but it's typical like upgrade this weapon on having to rummage about. That's the only thing you're missing, which they kind of tap into a little bit in this. We get a little bit of that, but that's about it. No game mechanic in it that can make it feel unique. It's not a unique thing as a game experience. Let me put it like that, in my humble opinion. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, I understand, right? So again, speaking as a non-gamer, right? I'm also speaking as somebody who did not tune in every Sunday night or watch it on Monday morning or whatever. For every episode that dropped, right? I watched the premiere. I watched the premiere just to get just of what was going on. I told myself, all right, well, it's 7 episodes, so I will wait until the finale comes, and then prior to that, like a couple days before, like what I did, I will just watch out where it is I missed out.
Right. For me it was I pick off like 3 at a time. I was like, all right, I watch one, and then I wait till about 4. I watch that, I catch up with it, and they didn't do anything that was that interesting, especially like compared to what they did in season 1, where they made some like really interesting choices. It's only 2 character actors they brought in that was interesting. That was Jeffrey Wright, which I liked what they did with him.
Yes,
and
me too. And by the way, Jeffrey Wright still getting that HBO money, because I mean he was in Westworld. I tuned out of Westworld, to be honest, somewhere around the second season, because that shit just gets way too confusing, bro. Like come on, man.
I couldn't get into season 3, but and then the other character actor Joe Pantiano. I was surprised to see him.
I was surprised to see him in that. But you'll talk about him. You'll talk about him just now too, right? Yeah, but but just to share general thoughts, right? Another thing that I was noticing, right, was how people were responding to the episode drops, right? And it.
Oh God.
All right, so here's the thing, right? I did not scour the internet. I did not scour YouTube and watch every single reviewer. But
boy, better off not.
People.
I find Last of Us is almost as bad as the Star Wars fandom. Last of Us fandom, holy shit, dude. That shit just... my God. Because look, it's a total culture war thing.
Mm-hmm.
Total.
Mm-hmm.
Total culture war thing. Because of the nature of it, and the nature of Druckmann, so because of the nature of it, is like the usual crowd will say, no, well, none of these people should exist in this world, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's just these weird, like, pick and choose, a la carte realism that you like to get from these people. And then the other side is that, no, well, I have to defend this thing, even though it's in my opinion, a bad creative choice. Like, in my humble opinion, the second game, how I always felt is that I thought it was a pretty good sequel up until a certain point. There's a certain point where it should have done, the story done, and they decided to just go on for in my humble opinion, no good reason. I get where they're trying to go it for, but I thought that's a bad reason to continue the storyline. And it completely ruined what was otherwise a solid sequel. Not as good as the first, but like a solid sequel if they ended it here, right? And I don't know what they will do in season 2 or how they will play it out, but I thought it had a perfect ending. It would have been fine. Leave it there. the usual crowd would get mad at it because this character arms too big or whatever it is. But none of that bullshit bothered me. It's just the story should have done. And then they just decide to continue. And it's like, all right, what the fuck? Like, you're ruining what was otherwise like a solid thing. I don't know if they'll change it. They might. They probably should. I don't know if they'll change it in that direction. But I saw a feel about it. But in terms of like the usual culture war, American culture war crap, uh, this one is the worst. Because of course the thing I've been seeing the worst was the actress being attacked for her looks now. And it's like,
Yeah,
but
I didn't look up everything about it, but yeah, they taken shots at Bella Ramsey for some just out of the blue,
Right.
just so. Cause this, I saw this news pop up around when I think episode 5 or 6 dropped. I was like, oh, just so? What she do? What she do to all them? Right?
which is weird because it's like, yeah, it's the same actress from the first season. So I don't like I didn't see these complaints back then. So like, why is the complaints a complaint now? I couldn't follow like,
Alright,
why is this
so-
such a big?
alright, so
And
I'll-
the complaint that they change the actress is like, yeah, but it's the same actress. Not like they brought in a new actress and she
Right.
don't look the part at all. Like, it had a real world actress, they could have get to fit the part. Whatever. It's the typical like complaining about actress looks kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. Yes.
Right. So-
but I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. So I'm gonna put it like this, right? Boy, it is really interesting to live in a world, right, where we have a stellar TV show that is based off of a stellar video game, right? And there are fans of the game that are arguing that things don't look or play out the way how they envisioned it when they first played it, or how it looked like in the game. So, why Abby looking so slim and she's not muscular as she was, blah blah blah.
Which was the opposite argument in the thing? Which was the opposite argument when the game came out? Because when the game, all right, so that, I don't know if this is a big spoiler for the game. Might be. Yeah, this might be a spoiler for you, maybe. So when they announced Last of Us 2, right, they said there's going to be a trans character, right? Now, there is a trans character in The Last of Us, and you'll see that character come in. But everybody thought it was Abby, right? Because you saw Abby in the photo, and Abby was all in the promo material, and it's this woman who have all these muscular arms. Everybody thought it was Abby, right? A whole heap of people said it was Abby, and it's like, no, it's not Abby. It's just Abby. She just practice she arms, and she bulk up just to bulk up the arms. Everybody will get into a big dumb debate about, no, that's not how protein and nutrition is work, and no woman could do that, and whatever it is.
What?
I like whatever, like yeah, whatever. Like, listen, I don't waste my time getting into these arguments because it's nonsense. And like, again, this is coming from me who does nitpick this bullshit. But like, for something like this, it's like, yeah, this stuff kind of cook in your brain a little bit. Like, dial back from it.
People think it's Tomb Raider or some sort, like what, circa
it's
late
typical-
90s, like when Tomb Raider come out, it's like, oh, women's breasts are supposed to be that big. We're like,
right.
that's
whatever.
what?
That's
That's the argument we get now with this game. Come on.
I'm not getting into the argument about that, but it had people like that because, well, it have no food and she shouldn't get as big and so on. So, okay, whatever.
No,
I-
man,
I give-
no.
That's not changing the story in any meaningful way to me. But whatever. Fine.
Yeah. All right, but yeah.
I thought that the valid critics of the second game, which is the execution, and well, this is still the most controversial scene, which is Joe's death.
Yes,
uh,
yes.
I thought, yes, you could have probably do this a little better in terms of how to tell the story and put it here and put this here and switching up the story. And this, look, you're complaining about editing, which is fine. Like, I don't have a problem if you're thinking about editing. Because editing is something that is a very subjective thing in terms of how to deliver and put out information. And somebody could say, no, it don't work like this for them, but for other people, they say it work. I always complain about editing ruining a film all the time. Right? Because to me, it's one of those things that, if you trim this down, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about that with another movie that's coming up. With this conceit. And I thought in The Last of Us, how they deliver the information, I felt could have been told a little better, in my humble opinion, in terms of like how this piece of information delivered. That's fine. Right? Complaining about nitpicky bullshit, right? That's not fine. Like that's the problem with that. Whatever. Moving on.
Right. So about the season here, just giving general thoughts, right? I thought that this was a really solid season of Last of Us, right?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there are, I'll put it like this, right? It is not perfect. It's not a perfect season. The first one I still put over this, just mainly because we are introduced into this world, and because of how it is held up very how it is supported, I should say, by both Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal. That's just the chemistry that they have together, right? So one sec.
Go ahead.
Right. So my nitpicks aside, right? I wish that Joel did not die in episode 2. it is ballsy, right? By HBO standards and by TV standards as a whole, it is very ballsy
Yeah, but
to do this,
that
right?
was the yeah, that was the conceit of the game. Like the game started very early in the game. They did that. And I was like, oh yeah,
Oh,
they had to
okay,
do the
okay,
same.
okay. I
Yeah,
thought like
that
it
was the
took
game.
I thought it took a longer while for that to
No,
happen. Because
yeah, yeah,
I skimmed
you don't play
through
a duel.
I skimmed through an article and well the creator Neil, right, said that he
Yeah,
just did not want the fan base to be waiting because he knew it was gonna happen, right? And
right,
I
exactly,
kinda
exactly.
had an idea, but I didn't really know exactly what it was or what was gonna happen. I just knew, okay, something gonna happen to Joe, right? So he did that there, right? But by
Right.
TV standards, that's kind of ballsy, Dread. You know what I mean? To take
Yeah,
the
exactly.
main lead
Yeah,
of the
he's a big
show
star.
and kill him off so
Yeah, he's a
easy,
big
so
star.
early, sorry.
Right. Agreed
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
So a part of me feels like because this is 7 episodes, this should have happened probably in the midway point, like episode 4, and then we see how things play out, right?
Right,
But
as a kind of clip, kind of thing, right?
yeah, but because of how everything else played out with Ellie, it's like, oh,
Right.
now I get where they're coming from. I now get where they're coming from,
Right.
right? So it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
one of those seasons where while I was watching it, I was like, all right, I understand why people are mad about this. I understand why people are disappointed by all this, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it is one of those shows where I feel like it rewards you for being patient. It rewards you for sticking out with it, right? Because, I mean, oh gosh, man, like I see people complain about, oh, the romance between Ellie and Dina felt like something out of some cheap YA novel. I'm like, what?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
what?
I mean, whatever.
You
Again,
so
all
so
of that-
so
all of
two
that-
that's
all of that-
what's like so two queer 19-year-old girls, sorry, yeah, I think Dina's 19, I think, yeah, I'm not too sure, yeah, like each other, blah blah blah. Oh wow, I specifically remember some people saying, oh, this is why I don't. This is why I'm not enjoying the season because it's leading so much into this whole romance stuff and it's forgetting about the zombie stuff. No, the show from the beginning and even
But
throughout this entire season has been grim AF Dread. So you had to have
but I
those
think-
lighter, heartfelt moments, right? And I'll talk
think
about the
it's-
second to last episode as well too. I thought that episode
Yeah, but
was kind of just designed to tell people, look, all the impatient people, like, shut the fuck up and this stick with it now. Stick with it now. Instead of complaining every time something don't play out the
but
way you want it to now. Like, stick with it now. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
they deviate. Here's the thing: they deviate. I don't think they deviate that much from the game, but because how this supposed to work, I think, as an adaptation is you tell things that and fill up the world in terms of the human stories about that. That's the thing. That's why, like when they did the oh gosh, what's his name? Boy, I forget the actor. They had a whole side story about this dude.
With Nick Offerman and the guy,
Offerman,
right,
right,
that
Offerman,
one,
right.
yeah.
Right. They do a whole thing. To me, that's the show. That is what they should do. They should make the show like
Yeah.
why? Okay, ask a simple
And
question.
that's if you think about it, that's why HBO put this out in the first place. It's about
Exactly.
the humans, about the characters.
Exactly.
It's not so much about
Why-
the zombies and the action and the explosions and shit. Like, you get that, but it's about the human interaction.
Right.
That is the core
Yeah,
of the
you gotta
show.
ask yourself. Yeah, you gotta ask yourself a simple question. Why does if I already play these games, why would I give a shit to watch this? Right? You gotta get me to watch it too, right? Like, because you
Good
could
point,
say, well,
good
just
point.
not make over you gotta make over the games, and you make it for people who never played games. But here's the thing, as I said before, the way of the game is that you can just watch somebody do a let's play on Twitch or YouTube or whatever it is, and that's watching the story. You ain't
Yeah,
missing
but
nothing,
it could
right?
be because it's HBO. You know, we always put HBO shows to such a high standard, so that's why we're always nitpicky when it comes to when things happen. Even like long before Game of Thrones, like dog people was talking shit with Sopranos and all too. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you know,
but
like it going way back there. You know?
Yeah, what I'm trying to say, why does anybody would watch this, right? You have to add something to it in some meaningful way. And Druckmann, I think, fully understands this. We got that in season 1. You got a slightly different take on the narrative, slightly, not too much, just enough for you to like say, okay, it have an interesting like different conceit and to fill up some issues that you might have had in the game in terms of this, and then more human elements, more humanistic elements to it. That's it. With this, because the second game was a lot more humanistic in terms of what it was trying to say and do. In a central conceit, I thought, all right, you could do something with this and what it build towards, right? Oh, well, we could give another spoiler, right? Since you already spoiled Joe dead. The reason why Abby is after Joe is because the main doctor is Abby's dad. Right?
Yes.
In
The one
one,
doctor
right?
who got a headshot. Yeah, in the finale, right? That was it.
But
Yeah.
he was the guy. He's the guy who could evacuate, cured the situation. Now, to be fair, now I was never clear. I forget when or how, but I was never clear on if Abby knew the truth behind what was going on. Like if she knew what the father was up to, what the father was going to do. Like that was never super clear to me. And it didn't really matter. Like it was like, oh, she was there, And would they would so because to me, I thought she would have like give that up to sort out Ellie instead of just going killing Joe. It would have been like, oh no, she just need to condemn Joe. That would have been a better way to like get back at Joe, right? But that is not what happened. She just wanted to kill Joe. And you could get into that debate as to what Abby knew from the perspective, and then we're finding out Ellie why Joe did it, and it's her fault because they end off on that. And I thought that was a good beat to end it off on, right? Where Dina man, the baby daddy get washed out. And they end it out on that now. And where they end it is good. It's good editing because they cut back to the beginning with Abby. I'm like, all right, they're gonna tell Abby's story and then coalesce it into our final season. And it probably should end right there because I don't think the story, unless you're gonna make a Last of Us 3, the story ends there. That's the last of the ending. Although I really hate the end of Last of Us 2. They should have cut that shit out, put that in DLC and make up some extra nonsense, some memory, some nightmare, some nonsense. But I really hated that ending to Last of Us 2. But we'll get to that. We didn't get it yet.
Yeah, for me, the direction is as strong as ever. The music, and it's so cool that it is the same composer who did the score for the games. Yeah, it still works as well. I mean that very dark, dour, very acoustic guitar driven music. It absolutely works, right? When shit gets tense and dark, it gets tense and dark, though. You know what I mean? Just from start to end, though, right? But I would say, though, the one person, believe it or not, right, who really holds this show down, boy, is Bella Ramsey. But she came in and she shut shit down, right? Now, I understand early on that people complain, oh, she's being a brat and all that kind of stuff. Why is she acting so? Always being so snarky and shit, right? And that's why I love the 6th episode, right? But before I get to 6th episode, quick, right? Of course, Pedro Pascal crushes it, as Joe, right? He
Right.
is so likable, but at the same time, he's flawed, right? And I know that he is holding on to a lot of like regret and rage and all that kind of stuff, right? But I didn't see. But in a way, like I knew that he would have come back into this season, right? But that's what make episode 6 so great, though. I just love how it's structured, right? I don't want to get too much into it, right? But I love that it is all these flashbacks involving Joel and Ellie, and it all centers on her birthday from the 15th all the way up to the 19th, right? And then some months later on, you have the old year's night dance, and then, well, of course, you know what happened New Year's Day, right? So I love how that's all set up there, right? And they actually reveal why it is Ellie had that resentment towards Joel. And when I saw it, it's like, yeah, that make a lot of sense. It had to do with this guy Eugene, right? Which was the husband of the psychiatrist. I forgot her name right now, right? Catherine O'Hara's character.
Right. Yeah, that's a weird side plot that I don't. It adds to this, but not too much for me.
Okay,
Like it's a weird kind of ending.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
This character is a bizarre addition.
okay, right. I didn't expect Joe Palantino of all people to be there, but I thought like just acting wise, he killed it though. It was just such a powerful dramatic scene, right? And I love that it goes back to the same conflict that Joel has in terms of, oh, is it for the greater good? Should I kill this guy or should I just let him, survive a little bit longer, right? Just to see his wife, right? No points though to Joel where you say if you love someone, you'll see their face anyway. I just paraphrasing. I'm like, dude, you want shit.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, really? Really, bro? What kind of fucking shit is that, right? But it just adds to the decision that he makes where he kills him instead of bringing him back to Jackson, basically, to see his wife one more time before he turns, right? But I understand, just in terms of the world that he's from, all right, is either we kill him now or he eventually turns into a zombie and kills myself and Ellie, right? I understand that, right? But at the same time, it's like, no, Ellie said, let me take him back, right? And I love that there's this moment where after, he basically tells the psychiatrist, look, yeah, he turned out to kill him, And then Ellie comes and says, no, he's lying. He shot him before he even turned. And I saw this face on there. I saw that same face on there. I know you're lying. I love that moment, right? And then that leads to, the last encounter that they have. That's after the dance now, and he's in the he's outside with the guitar, and then she asks him, what happened, right? And boy, just the tears, boy. Just look at the eyes, though, and just how burn just the burn that they feel in that. That's how it all comes up, boy. Is great acting there, right? But yeah, again, Bella, boy, she really killed it with her performance, right? I mean, people will argue for days about, oh, she's snarky and this and oh, why, she oval faced and blah blah blah. It's like, no, she is playing the character. Even though I never played the game, she is playing the character. I thought that she played it perfectly, in my opinion, right? That being said, though, I love that she is pushed to the edge, though. And just to touch quickly on the violence, right? The moment where Joel's dead, and then, of course, well, another moment I'll mention where Ellie attacks one of the WLF people, right? I like that, it either cuts back to a reaction or it's done in shadow, so you're not really seeing the violent act taking place, right? So in particular with Ellie, where she's basically hitting this girl, don't mind is McGill Tati Gabrielle, like,
Right, yeah. With the leg.
yeah, boy, it's like McGill, like, you know what I mean? But at the
Yeah, she
same
get
time, again, yeah,
that's actually a really good scene because the stark red of it is a really good stuff, I thought.
exactly. But I like that it wasn't, gratuitous. That's the thing, right?
Right.
So even by HBO standards, I admire the fact that it was not done in a gratuitous kind of way, right? You didn't want to sicken the people, you know what I mean? And you could argue that, HBO always does a solid job with that, right? Where, yes, the violence is shocking, right? But it's never done in a gratuitous kind of way to make you feel sick. Like, you're not going to run outside and vomit just because you know Joel is getting beat or that WLF girl is getting beat, right? The actress who plays Abby, I forgot the name right now, Caitlin something. Apparently her mom died around the time of production, right? So
Okay.
it kind of justifies why, when she's doing the monologue before she beats Joel, why you're just feeling that tension, right? But I thought that she was just a great antagonist, right? I wasn't really studying like the bulk and just how she looked at that. I was just seeing this red hot rage that she was going through. Like, people telling her, look, like, you really should be thinking things out perfectly, properly. And it's like, no, fuck this guy had to die, right? Of course, the world building, it just gets better because it would be introduced to the WLF. And I mean, my boy Jeffrey Wright show up as just this ruthless leader. You see in this group called the Scars, you know what I mean? I like that it is still, like, it's not like we're introduced to it yet, but we don't get too much information of them as yet. So that's what we'll get hopefully in the finale, right? Where it stops off, though, really caught me by surprise. Not so much what happens with Ellie, right? But that's really the last shot, right? Where it's pretty much telling you, yes, we're gonna follow things from Abby's perspective. Yeah, I won't lie, I was like, what? Like, that's how they end it? Like, just this white shot of a stadium in Seattle, and then we're going back to day one, which was, where Ellie's adventure started, right? Over this like 2.5 day period. So we're going back from that point to see from Abby's perspective.
Which is how the game, which is roughly how the game played out.
Yeah, but it took a while for me to sit down and I had to think about, like, oh, right, that's how the game is. Oh, right. But again, going back to HBO, that's kind of a ballsy way to end the season off. Like, on a very ambiguous note now, you know what I mean? So people had to wait 2 more years now to be like, what happened? Or like me now, gotta go online and find out what happened next, right? Watch some gameplay videos or whatever it is, right? So at the end of the day, right, as a wrap up here, right? I thought that, just the consistency of quality from the last season carried across over here. Of course, HBO keeps making these creative risks, and I thought, like, just killing off Joel, you know what I mean, at episode 2 was very ballsy, right? But I like that he came back in the penultimate episode and just added so much detail to what was going on with Ellie, just with their interactions together. I thought it really worked, right? Again, it's dark, it's grim, visceral, but it's also humanistic. There's hope in all of this chaos and madness and sadness, right? I love that about this show, right? But again, boy, I could understand the nitpicks there, but boy, people just need to sit down, watch the show, let it play out to the very end, and then complain away. Complain about Bella. Complain about the actress who play what's her face? Abby. Complain about the pacing. Complain about Bella and Bella. About Ellie and Dina. Complain about all that after the show ends now. But people were just talking about the show in such a way like, boy, the quality just dipped and it's so bad, and why tune into the show in the first place? I won't be surprised if half of them people who was talking shit about the show didn't even play the game in the first place, right? But that being said, I, as somebody who never played the game, absolutely enjoyed this second season. It's not as great as the last one, admittedly, and just to put it simply, is because, we boy Pedro isn't there anymore. But I understand why, given the nature of the game itself, right? But I still thought that this was a solid season, and I could see this in my best of list. Maybe, not honorable mention. This is going to be in my top 10 for sure. I just don't know where at the moment, right? So for me, just getting the rating out of the way. Strong 4 to a very light 4.5 out of 5, man. I really enjoyed the season, right? Yes, it is not perfect, but it is far from oh, this is like, man, the quality and this is terrible and I don't. No, stop it, shut up, watch the season out, and then when it ends, complain away, right? But don't be nitpicking out loud. You know what I mean, after every episode, like, I don't understand this. Why? Like, isn't this accurate to the game? I just asking this as somebody who never played the game, right? I'm assuming that it is, right? Just saying. Moving on.
Right.
All right, but yeah, Ricardo, take it away. You could share more thoughts on the show, and especially your perspective on it. You know, seeing that you played Last of Us Part 2, and then give a rating.
Yeah, as I said, I wasn't super excited for this as much as season 1 because I wanted to see what it would change, but because I do love the second game as much as the first one, and well, because of mainly because of the narrative, and I didn't expect them to change too much. I wasn't super hyped for this. I just watched 3 episodes at a time, and I just pick off the finale as it was. I think it was like 1, then 2, 3, 4, then 5, 6, 7. And that's pretty much it. It's good. Like, well executed, good acting, good everything. But I can't in good conscience say that I super loved it. And mostly because I know the story already. I want to see what they're gonna do with it. I don't know. And this is more just my character, like what I've done in terms of editing or changes. But I thought we could get more Abby content. As it was, we didn't get that. They just fill out Ellie and then give us that, and then all the Ellie stuff with Joel, and that was good too. And then they add the stuff with the psychiatrist, which was I get why they did it as a filler call, but to me it still felt like a strange choice, but it was fine. That's about it. Yeah, rating, I still give it a high rating, and the wait and next. And the thing is, because I'm not excited for the storyline, it'll come back when it comes back. Whatever, HBO still making the money. So that's about it. Yeah, rating. We still give it a good high score because of just the high quality of the production. And it works for what it is. So yeah, it's still get 8 out of 10. I dug it for what it was.